Hello class, good day. I'm Sir Bogart and I welcome you this semester with our subject, CA Orientation. It's actually one of my favorite courses because it's very basic and I want to impart to you the experiences I have being a civil engineer and how I can influence you to love the course more. Okay, that is all about civil engineering orientation. So the basics, the foundations of the study of civil engineering. So let's start. Let me share my screen. Okay, so our lecture number one, we will talk about the history of civil engineering. Our outline for today, we will talk about civil engineering as a discipline, as a profession, and civil engineering, the field of CE in education. Okay, so a formal definition of CE, according to ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineers, is a professional engineering discipline that deals with the design, construction, and maintenance of the physical and natural built environment, such as roads, bridges, canals, dams, etc., houses, buildings, bridges, everything that is built, okay, is under the science, under the field of civil engineering. Okay, now let's talk about the civil engineering as a discipline. Now, question, why is the term civil and not building engineering? Right? Because we're building buildings, we're erecting buildings. You see, being one of the first, okay, one of the first discovered civil engineering or engineering field other than the military civil engineering. Okay? Military engineering. Military engineering. So, militars, those are non-civil, right? Wars, uh, strategies, operations, all of those are military and non-civil engineering. That is why in the early as 18th century, the term was coined as civil as opposed to the non-civil or the military engineering. Okay? Take note of that. That's very important. So non-civil, military, civil engineering, other than non-civil or building engineering. Okay? So anything not military. Okay? Now, so yan, soldiers, no? Anything about military and non-civil engineering. Civil engineering is traditionally broken into a number of subdisciplines. So as we said earlier, that it is considered the second of the oldest or one of the two oldest field of engineering. And it is defined formally to distinguish non-military engineering from military engineering. And it takes place from the public sector to the municipal sectors, to the national, international, the private, and the governmental sectors. Yun. So short, what do you call this? Branching or the science of civil engineering. As we said earlier, and as we defined civil engineering first a while ago, the application of physical and scientific principles for solving the problems of society and its history is intricately linked to advancing the understanding of physics and mathematics throughout history. Because civil engineering is a wide-ranging profession, as we can see in the diagram, including several specialized sub-disciplines. Its history linked to knowledge of structures, material science, geography, geology, soils, hydrology, environment, mechanics, and other fields. So from these sciences, we can say that it is connected to biology, hydrology, environmental science, material science. That's why we have construction materials, study of steel, study of concrete, study of asphalt. Everything is under civil engineering. And of course, your computational, your mechanics, and that is governing also in your physics and mathematics. And finally, your social sciences, we talk about laws, okay? You talk about contracts. We talk about management. We talk about people. We talk about service. That's why all of this is correlated with civil engineering. Okay, so throughout the history, an example of this, of the Parthenon in Greece, no? Ancient and medieval history, most architectural design and construction was carried out by artisans and stone masons and your carpenters. Rising to the role of master builder. That's the term first, no? Before it was called a civil engineer, a master builder. No knowledge was retained in guilds and seldom supplanted by advances. Structures, roads, and infrastructure that existed were repetitive, and increase in scale were incremental. Okay? So the one of the earliest practice of civil engineering was this. Who is this class? I know you know this guy, no? The very famous lolo of philosophy, the one who discovered the Archimedes or the Archimedes principle, no? Kaya Archimedes. He's Archimedes. So one of the earliest examples of scientific approach to physical and mathematical problems to civil engineering is the work of this guy, Archimedes. So in this case, the Archimedes principle, which underpins our understanding of buoyancy and practical solutions of Archimedes' screw. So in this case, now later I will explain this properly. The other image, the Archimedes screw. So just a principle of balance. Principle of balance. Next, this guy class is Brahma Gupta. Okay, take note of that now. Brahma Gupta, an Indian mathematician. He used the arithmetic in order for him to early computation of volume excavated material. Okay, so mga Indian, Asians, okay? He used Hindu-Arabic numeral sa mga old Sanskrit, mga writings, old writings nila that have shown his computation for volume excavation. Okay, next. So we talk about the history or the discipline of civil engineering. Let's now talk about the civil engineering profession. So as we said earlier, engineering has been an aspect of life since the beginnings of human existence. The earliest practice of civil engineering may have been commenced between 4000 to 2000 BC. So ito Egyptian era, no? And way back to what is this class? The early medieval era, no? Mesopotamian, medieval. Laser pointer, yan. Okay, the Hohokam Indians and the Indus Valley civilization. So, yan. When they started to abandon the nomadic existence, nomads, wala silang tirahan. That's why they need a proper shelter. So they have decided to start the field of civil engineering. So they need to build a shelter in order to protect them from weather and extreme weather events. Okay. Now let's characterize. Until modern times, there is no clear distinction between these two, no? Architects versus engineers. But then, as we way back in the construction of pyramids in Egypt again, these were first instances of large structures constructions. Kaya actually this class, this guy, no, Imhotep, he is also considered the first architect, at the same time the first engineer, okay, civil engineer, because the way he constructed the pyramids are correct and stable, no? So papaliit. The foundation has a larger scale of bricks. That's why it is stable, then going upwards. So the first architect, the first civil engineer. And another illustration or another historic data of civil engineering was in Kanat water management system. So this one about 3,000 years oldest water system, no water management system, and longer than 71 kilometers. Again, class, I'm a water resource engineer. That's why I'm very passionate when it comes to water resources. And this one, Kanat, is the oldest existing, about 3,000 years old. Okay. So this is a practice also of civil engineering. Next is our Parthenon. So again in ancient Greece, no, constructed by the Roman engineers. The people of Roman era, Alexander the Great, sila Augustus Caesar, Julius Caesar, and so on. Now, what is this? The Great Wall of China by General Meng Qian under the Qin Emperor Xin Huang, and the stupa was constructed in ancient Sri Lanka. I've shown these structures no, na way back in the old era. The field of civil engineering is already practiced. So itong Great Wall of China is constructed in order to protect them, no? Protect the Chinese dynasty sa mga gera. Now, let's talk about this guy, no? The first civil engineer, the first entitled civil engineer, John Smeaton. He's the one who constructed the Eddystone Lighthouse. Now, in this plan, no, class, this is actually correct, no? This data was reviewed and his design was considered correct. So way back in the 1700s, class. In 1771, John Smeaton and some of his colleagues formed the Smithsonian Society of Civil Engineers. So this is actually the first elite group of civil engineers, but it is not actually considered as something educational or organizational, more on social to. More on social po. So mga dinner. And meron din siyempre na yes, considered siya ng mga technical group. Merong mga technical meetings, pero more on a societal gathering yung nagaganap because of the dinners during that time. So, now, in 1818, so take note of the dates, in 1700s actually, to be fixed, 1771, no? John Smeaton. In 1818, the Institution of Civil Engineering was founded in London. And in 1820, Thomas Telford became its first president, okay, the first leader. And the Royal Charter in 1828 formally recognized CE as a profession. So more na London, okay, British society. Now the charter defined the following: the art of directing the great sources of power in nature for the use and convenience of man as the means of production and of traffic in states, both of external and internal trade, as applied in the construction of the structures, okay? And in the application, in the construction and application of machinery and in the drainage of cities and towns. So mainly, define na dito yung purpose and the vision of civil engineering. Okay, so in 18th century also, the term civil engineering was coined to incorporate all things civilian, as we said earlier, no, opposing the military engineering. And actually, balik tayo, no, 1747, the first institution for teaching civil engineering has been formed. This is the École Nationale des Ponts et Chasses. Etchoses, no? Etchos. Was established in France. So ano pa rin, no? Sa ating Europe pa rin, Europe. And more examples followed in the other European countries such as Spain. Okay, so puro sa Europe. Now, the civil engineering education to formally start, siya, nauna na nga yung etchoses, but then, puro lalaki. Puro boys. But then, the first private college to teach CE was the Norwich University, established in 1819. The first woman to graduate CE was Nora Blatch in 1835. So take note of the dates, class. 1819, established na yung college, but then 1835. So merong discrimination for the women. Okay, so protect your rights as a woman. No? Hindi ka babae. Babae lang. Babae ka. Okay, hindi ka babae ka lang. Babae ka. Lagi mong tatandaan yun. So that is Nora Blatch, the first woman civil engineer and granted by Cornell University. Hindi pa pala class, hindi pa 1835, 1905. 1905. So the 1835 was when from Europe, it moved now to USA. Okay? So Western na. Now, other important milestones are the following. In 19th century, the division between civil engineering and military engineering was properly distinct by the Royal Military Academy. Coupled with the demands of industrial revolution, spawned engineering education initiatives. The class of civil engineering and mining, so pasok na ng mining, was founded at King's College in response to the growing railway system. And the College for Civil Engineers in Putney was established in 1839. The UK's first chair of engineering was established at the University of Glasgow in 1840. So that will be it for the history of civil engineering. And let me before we end this lecture, ito yung kanina, no? Archimedes lever or Archimedes balance, the principle is give me a place to stand and I will move the earth. So in this case, if you if you will have a lever equivalent as the weight of the mass of the earth, you can specifically balance it. Okay, you can move the earth. Yun yung gusto niyang iparating dito. So you can simply balance if you have an equivalent weight and you can move an equivalent lever. Anong principle to, class? Sa moment, di ba? Sa moment, you can couples, you can move it depending sa force na i-exert equivalent sa weight ng earth. But then, an intangible or an important quote that Archimedes want to imply here is you are never too young to change the world. Okay, you are never too young to change the world. Always remember that you can make a difference wherever you are located. And now you are a student, and if you do your best, I promise you, sooner or later you will be a great civil engineer, and you will be able to move the earth to change the world. So that will be it. Thank you, class, and I hope you learned something. Again, you are never too young to make a difference. Go out and change the world. God bless you all.